over on the Striker Texas Twitter. Victor Araiza with you this morning, and I'm joined by renowned journalist in Major League Soccer, Phil West.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, well, we're done through the conference semifinals. Some crazy, crazy games in the MLS Cup playoffs. I guess just your overall thoughts, Phil, on what you've seen so far.
It was a really fun round too. I mean, I was up a little later than I anticipated last night to see NYCFC knock off the Revolution in penalty kicks. A really interesting penalty kick sequence to end things. We had 2 extra time goals. We actually had a lot of really good round one games. I mean, I think the earliest decider of all of those was on Thanksgiving, where Portland got the lone goal of the game in, like, I want to say the 89th minute. So yeah, these were really good, exciting, compelling games after, a little bit of a lackluster round one maybe, but yeah, things have really picked up, and MLS chaos reigns. I mean, both number one seeds are out. One of the favorites, the number two seed
Right.
in the West, the Sounders, they're out. I mean, it's been a wild ride so far.
Yeah. Let's start with that first game you mentioned. Colorado Rapids. They finished atop the Western Conference on decision day. They had the
Mhm.
Thanksgiving game. Record viewership for the first time since I believe 2004.
Yeah.
So that was a good game for Fox. Probably got some of the Thanksgiving NFL game earlier on.
Yeah, it was like
But
7.2 million. Yeah, I was I was
well,
second screening. I was watching on a laptop because I was at a gathering with two rabid Cowboy fans. So that was taking the main screen, but I was able to switch over during halftime to get the ending little part of
yeah.
Colorado
Well,
Portland.
that
So
was that was a controversy, right? Because it's I think the official number out there, the average viewership was like 1.9.
hmm.
By Fox PR tweeted that out. I think the initial number, like you said, was out there like 7 million. People kind of got a little bit confused because of the information that came out. I think
Hmm.
the NFL game, the Chicago Bears game against the Detroit Lions, factored into that, right? They got the
Yeah.
viewership from like 4 o'clock, and yeah. But I mean, it's a record nonetheless, right? I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
something that
No, it's good to see. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it proves that the Thanksgiving game does work. I mean, you're not gonna
right.
necessarily be able to knock off Cowboys Raiders head to head, because that's massive, and
The
American football is
Mexican
still
Super
American
Bowl.
football. But it's good. I mean, it's good nonetheless that it was something where it got eyeballs on the game, and it was a good, compelling game. I mean, of course, scoreless for most of it, but
Yeah.
certainly two good teams that were worthy of the matchup, and yeah, a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, like you said, Mabiala in the 90th, and then a big loss report in Asprilla gets a red
Mhm.
card, and we're pretty much secured. But like you said, I mean, not a big
Yeah, and maybe
yeah,
maybe an even bigger loss too. Sebastian Blanco looks like
right.
he's got some kind of lower body injury that's gonna keep him out for the duration. Hopefully he can bounce back, but it didn't look all that hot when he went off.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Colorado Rapids done in here didn't necessarily get a home field advantage. Do you think that's such a? I mean, we obviously have the two big seats, right, from each conference. New England also
Mhm.
eliminated in the other game. Uh, do you think? I don't want to kind of drag away from the game a little bit, but do you
Mhm.
think the format should be changed a little bit to benefit the top seeds more?
Yeah, I think with Charlotte going in like next year, I mean, you'll have 28 teams. I mean, certainly you could do a 16 team playoff with 8 in each conference and just have number one go against number 8. I mean, I guess there's theoretically some advantage to having a bye week if you're the number one seed to rest up a little bit, but certainly, it didn't seem to work for either Colorado or New England. I mean, they had long delays. I mean, New England yesterday they played for like the first time in 23 games, and they were coming off a decision day loss where they looked a little flat. So, certainly they had a lot of intensity. I mean, I wouldn't say that the long layoff was kind of a sole factor in certainly what happened, but certainly it doesn't help. You have to find a way to get into a groove when you were that long idle, and it just didn't seem like it really served either of the number one seeds well. And that's the thing. I mean, it would only be one more game. I mean, you're still winnowing, down to a semifinals with 4 teams, and then a conference finals with 2 teams, obviously, and then MLS Cup. So I would expect maybe a change. I mean, I don't have any inside info on that anyway, but I would certainly think that they might revisit that, just kind of given where the number one seeds fell.
Yeah, and Portland obviously benefiting too from New England getting eliminated, so they'll host
Mhm.
the Western Conference Final, and then if they advance, they would be hosting MLS Cup as well.
Mhm.
Portland defeating Minnesota 3-1 in the first round, of course. Um, are you a big believer in this Portland team? It seems like it has to be right. Like it's either Portland or Seattle every time out of the Western Conference, and it could be the
Mhm.
case again this year.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the big question is, does Valeri get in the rejuvenation machine and kind of resume his role from past years? I mean, he's been kind of more of a bench player of late, and I mean, Blanco's been the one that's been really driving stuff. But obviously, I mean, if he's out, then they're going to have some sort of catalyst in the midfield, and certainly Valeri's
Right.
done that before. Um, yeah,
All you
it's
need is
it's
two
it's hard
games
to
from
say.
him.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly, yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, it looked like based on the matchups and just kind of based on what everybody sort of assumed that Portland would be doing the conference finals against SKC on the road, but RSL pulled off the pretty amazing 2-1 win and got themselves to Portland. Yeah, and there's a weird. So we were a little confused a few weeks ago in Moon Tower about the how they work the home field for MLS Advantage, and it's
Right.
based on points and it's based on Supporter Shield rankings first. So, and then the wins becomes the tiebreaker after that. So Portland, even though they're the 4th seed in the West, they would host regardless, even if the number 2 seed Union beat the number 4 seed NYCFC in the Eastern Conference Finals, which is a little crazy, but that's, I mean, that's got to be motivation for Portland, right? I mean, if you win, you get to
Right.
host an MLS Cup in one of the best home atmospheres in
Yeah.
MLS. So I
They
I
haven't
think
hosted
they'll
one yet.
be, yeah, I
Yeah.
think they'll definitely, they'll definitely do everything they can and pull out all the stops to find a way. That said, RSL is going on a pretty incredible run. And I know the big fantasy, I've seen this floating around out here and I thought about it myself. So you have RSL, team with no owner. Their coach leaves to go to Seattle midway through the season to become an assistant coach, not a head coach, but an assistant coach. He takes a willing demotion. And then they could theoretically be playing NYCFC in a baseball stadium with the postage stamp size field. So that is the ultimate kind of MLS wacky dream, right? So to have
Right.
those two teams in play. But I mean, more likelihood now, if you just go chalk, I mean, it would be Philly going to Portland, which would, I think, would be a really compelling final. I
Yeah.
mean, Philly hasn't necessarily had kind of like the it factor this season, but they do find ways to win. Curtin's a pretty incredible coach, and they have players that can get it done. I mean, they have defenders that step up and score clutch goals. I mean, that's kind of been what it's been for them. In this go around, they had Gazdag in this previous game, and then of course Glesnes had the banger deep into extra time to beat NYC, or the Red Bulls rather, in the first round.
Yeah. Um, let just real quick because I don't want to like just get off from Colorado. Just how do you recap their season and what they've done this year?
I mean, Colorado's had a really incredible season with what they have, right? So, I mean, again, they don't really have any best 11 caliber stars. They have a lot of contributors. They have a lot of players that do well, especially in home altitude. And Robin Freezer, I mean, again, I still think he's deserving of Coach of the Year. I mean, I'm sure Arena's going to get it based on Supporter Shield
Yeah.
and the points
Arena
record and
got
all
it.
that,
Yeah.
and just his career has been phenomenal. But Fraser's done such a good job preparing this team all season, and you saw kind of early on against Austin, they had, pretty decisive loss early on and bounced back from that and, clawed and scratched all the way to the 1 seed when it looked like at points that the Sounders would have it or SKC would have it. So yeah,
Right.
it's been a phenomenal job. But yeah, I kind of had a feeling, number 1 seed, long layoff, Portland coming to town. I saw that upset. I mean, I
Yeah.
made very astute round 2 predictions in the Striker, and 1 out of 4 came true, and this was the one that did.
Well, there you go. My predictions went out of the way in the first round, and then they just kind of they finished the tombstone. I had Kansas City going all the way to the final and winning it.
Yeah, I didn't see
So
that. So yeah. I mean, certainly you can make a case, and I mean, based on the first game against Vancouver, they kind of had that look, but yeah, kind of late in the season, they did not have that look. But who knew it would be this? Who knew it would be
Yeah, RSL, like
RSL
you
knocking
said,
them off.
building off that game that the infamous zero shot game against Seattle, winning on penalties. Um, Obviously, David Ochoa, one of the face of kind of RSL through these playoffs in a way. They go into Kansas City, which it is a tough place to play. Obviously, Vermees getting heat for maybe his pattern with substitutions or just way of handling his team in the playoffs. But ultimately, Salt Lake they get it done, right? And um, under Mastreni, who's kind of playing for that job, um,
Mhm.
could they play spoiler?
Yeah, they could certainly, absolutely. I mean, they've done it so far. They seem to have the formula. They are defending exceptionally well over this tournament, and like you said, yeah, I mean, Ochoa has kind of been the face of RSL, and also the face of evil, right? The face of housery, the face of the dark arts, right? So that's been really fun to see, and yeah, I mean, that would be just kind of the ultimate Cinderella story, right? So you have a team that barely gets in the playoffs in the last day on a last gasp goal. At the start of the season, everybody had them penciled in for last or close to last, just kind of given their situation, given how traumatic their 2020 was and kind of what they returned in 2021. I mean, it looked like it might be a little bit better, but didn't necessarily look like they were a playoff team. And lo and behold, they got themselves in. And that's the beauty of the MLS playoffs. You get yourself into the mix and you can go on a run and you can go deep into the tournament. It doesn't take that much. I mean, against Seattle, they didn't they didn't even have to take a
Right.
shot. They didn't even have to push the ball vaguely towards goal. They just managed to hang on and keep Seattle from scoring and,
Yeah.
and did it in PKs. So completely bizarre way to get there, but they got there, and that's what it's about at the end.
Yeah. Even on decision day, right? They had a,
Mhm.
a bit of a controversial game. Then they go to Seattle. They get criticized for the way they win there. But this one in Kansas City, right? I mean, this was
Mhm.
in a way convincing, right? Kansas City was
Yeah.
up 1-0.
Mhm.
Anderson Julio gets the equalizer in the second half, and then just in the dying moments, you get Bobby Wood. Who
Yep.
would have thought? Good for Salt Lake.
Yeah, I mean, that was, I know they talked about this on the broadcast too. I mean, that was a really key thing, is like both those goals came from second half energy subs, and they had that, in Kansas City just wasn't able to match that at the end. And I mean, it's weird because like earlier in the season, I mean, Kansas City has been the team where it's like, okay, they are going to make a late run, they're going to make a late push, but they kind of in a way, I guess, got out SKC'd, right?
Yeah. Um, More games that were up in the air were really in the East. Both games decided by penalties. You
Mhm.
talked about Philadelphia a little bit already, but dive into just what I wasn't a big believer in this Philadelphia team because I thought what happened in Kansas City would kind of happen to
Mhm.
them, where it's yeah, good in the regular season, but once it comes to playoff time, I didn't know if they were going to be able to string some wins together like this. It hasn't been easy, right? Like you said, I mean that
Mhm.
late extra time winner against the Red Bulls, and they come here against Nashville. Um, Nashville actually led in this game, right? Philadelphia then gets the equalizer, and then
Yeah.
eventually this all goes to penalties, which
Mhm.
it's a story all on its own.
Yeah, I mean, what I
Yeah,
said, what I said in looking at the matchup was that, I mean, obviously Philadelphia is a really solidly built team, but like I was saying, that Hani Mukhtar has been playing out of his mind. I mean, he's been an MVP caliber player all season, and I didn't think Philly had anybody who could quite match that. I thought that would be the difference, right? So,
yeah. No,
um,
I thought the same thing. I mean, they were bad in that game against the Red Bulls. I mean, Shibilko blows one over. I mean, they should
mhm,
have handled that game. Their finishing hasn't been quite there, but I mean they're able to get it done at home.
mhm.
That's worked in their favor. And then on penalties, I mean Andre Blake. I mean, you can't really have a better goalkeeper than him, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, like on the last two, like you or I could have stood in goal and been fine. I mean, I have never seen a team as abysmally bad in a penalty
They
sequence as
missed every.
Nashville.
They were consistent, They at least that they weren't gonna let one guy take the blame for the entire thing, right? That's
Right.
key.
Yeah, they all had a hand or a foot in it, as it may be. Yeah, no, it was incredible. That Walker Zimmerman final shot, I'm still not sure if that has come down yet. So I think that's in orbit now. I think that that is spinning around the globe as a testament to. Yeah, and again, I mean, it's like Nashville had an incredible season. I mean, year two they had a legitimate case to be MLS Cup winners, and they looked like they were going to perhaps do that after their win against Orlando. They looked pretty convincing, and then all of a sudden, here we are. Comes down to penalty kicks, and apparently they did not practice those enough. And here we are with Philly hosting with a chance to get MLS Cup, and all they have to do is knock off what seems to be a pretty hot NYCFC team right now.
Yeah. You got more of a pulse on this. I mean, here we go, right? Trying to create rivalries in MLS, but do you think there might be something brewing there now that you got Philly and New York in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference Final?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, I think with a lot of these teams, I mean, I think like Nashville, Orlando, certainly, they have some beef kind of based on like what went down Halloween. I mean, but certainly, obviously the teams are pretty geographically close to one another, and yeah, I think it's going to be a really good match. I mean, of course, Castellanos kind of lost his mind towards the end of the game, like went in for a slide tackle, studs up that he maybe shouldn't have. He has knocked himself out of this match, so I think that's going to be challenging for NYCFC to overcome, because Castellanos, I mean, not only the Golden Boot leader, but he's been, or the Golden Boot winner rather, but I mean, he's been a leader on that team the whole season. He's really kind of stepped up like that. But again, they're also, I think this was like maybe their ninth red card of the season. So, they are occasionally prone to that. And so, I mean, if I'm picking, I would pick chalk for both of these, but again, I have been wrong. A lot of us can be wrong. The MLS playoffs can make a lot of us wrong. So, it could be RSL at NYCFC, and that dream would be, that would be fantastic. That would just be so much narrative, but Philly Portland would be solid. Right. Portland NYCFC would be solid too. Then you'd get Castellanos theoretically back for that too. But then, obviously NYCFC has to find a way to score against a pretty good defense. And like you mentioned, Andre Blake, really good goalkeeper, one of the best in the league. So, good luck with that.
Don't you see New York though as a bit more complete team? I mean, they probably could be able. I mean, not to take anything away from Castellanos, but with players they have, like Maxi Morales. I mean, maybe they can at least for one game, override that, and then it's on to the final if they can get it done.
Yeah, and I mean, like Santi Rodriguez, I mean, his opening goal was amazing. I mean, he's looked really good of late. Hebert, kind of see what maybe he's got in the tank. I mean, yeah, they certainly. I mean, they're a deep team. I mean, they're part of the City Football Group network after all. I mean, they're gonna be able to throw a pretty complete 11 out there. But I do think missing Castellanos is going to be a pretty big thing, right? So, but again, yeah, I mean, for Philly, it's their offensive players that they've relied on have not necessarily stepped up. I mean, it's been defenders scoring. So, particularly, Shabilko. I mean, Montero's a big difference maker, and he's been kind of in and out a little bit of the lineup this year. I mean, he's looking solid, but Shabilko, I mean, I think a lot kind of weighs on him, and then Paxton Aronson as well. See what kind of perhaps difference he can maybe make.
Yeah. Last one, New England obviously winning the Supporters Shield. Good season, but obviously a big Eastern Conference schedule throughout the year. What do you make of their season? Do you think do you think we see a change or just anything as far as giving more advantage to the higher seed during the regular season? Basically, do you think we'll see the regular season success rewarded more in the playoffs, or do you see more of the same?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think if they expand to 16 teams, obviously, then you get the number one seed in the mix earlier, which is kind of what, the big kind of criticism is right now, right? That the number one seeds sat for so long while other teams were playing and were able to get themselves into maybe kind of more of a rhythm. So certainly I could see that expansion possible. I mean, for the Revs, I mean, yeah, it was a really great season, but obviously the goal was to win MLS Cup, and it's got to be super disappointing, the way they went out. I mean, they gave up, that extra time goal to Castellanos, and then they went a man up because Castellanos got the second yellow, and then Buchanan had that incredible equalizer, and it looked like they were going to push for a game winner, and they couldn't quite get there, even though NYCFC had another player that was hampered, so it was essentially like 11-on-9 for the last few minutes. But yeah, that's the big question for the Revs. I mean, Buchanan obviously he's headed off to Europe in January, so how do you replace a player of that caliber? A two-way winger that has that much dynamism and can step up in big moments like that. I mean, they've got a really good team, but he's a huge piece, and they're going to have to figure that out.
Yeah, you're obviously a big historian of the game. I actually kind of want to give a quick shout out here. Uh, not trying to get
Are you going to
Pro
do
West,
that?
just
Okay.
yeah, there you go.
Oh,
Um,
it's still in plastic. Cool.
it's a collectible. No, look, you've written about the history of the game here in the United
Mhm.
States. Looking at that crowd last night in New England, right?
Mhm.
A market that's been so criticized. Um, I don't. What do you think about that market? You could obviously provide more detail, but obviously, eventually everybody's hoping for a soccer-specific stadium in the Boston
Yeah.
area. But just seeing that full crowd, doesn't that make your heart go full?
Yeah, I mean it's great. I mean, again, yeah, I mean I'm a little heartbroken for the Revs because I mean they've been to 5 MLS Cups and they haven't won it ever, and it looked like they had a team that was really going to be able to do it this year, and that's just kind of the heartbreak of the playoffs, right? I mean, it's you have a few, just a few bad moments, and again, like a really good defense. Like that first goal came against Farrell, who's a really solid defender and has been all year, but they just they just had incredible movement on that opening goal, and just Rodriguez, right place, right time, and just hit it perfectly. And then Castellanos, I mean, it's hard to keep him out of goal, and then all of a sudden there it is, there's your season, right? So history making
That's what it
season, and
is.
then you fall short. Yeah, but it was good. I mean, I'm glad fans came out. But yeah, certainly, I mean, Gillette is a great NFL stadium. I don't think it's obviously as great of an MLS stadium. So yeah, so certainly getting something soccer specific would be, obviously I think better in terms of atmosphere and all that. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously they're one of the original teams, and yeah, they had a fantastic season, and it's just it's a shame for their fans that it fell a couple games short of where they wanted it.
Yeah, farewell to the original logo,
Mm.
the last
R.I.P.
survivor.
Crown flag. Yeah.
Let's go through the MLS teams. Texas MLS clubs announcing roster moves. The contract option deadline was on the 30th.
Mhm.
Just what you think of some of the moves made? Obviously, Austin retaining Alex Ring.
Yeah. Well, that seemed obvious, right? I mean, against captain and one of the consistent best players on the team. Again, just kind of trying to figure out like what is his best position and what are they going to do to build around him and figure that out. Because I mean, again, obviously there's some people that criticize aspects of his game, speed and whatnot, but I think he's still a really important player. I mean, to me, what really stood out was that Jared Stroud and Brady Scott both were out, which means that I believe Hosen is still the only player of the five for now, who is retained from what is looking more and more like not a fantastic expansion draft, right? So, and speaking of expansion draft, Charlotte's got theirs December 14th. So, Austin could see maybe an additional player go in that, because of course Austin is only able to protect 12 players, and obviously they're in the mix. They didn't have anybody obviously drafted last year because they were the ones drafting. So that to me kind of jumped out. And then for, I guess, you want to talk Houston then, and Matias Vera coming
Yeah,
back, and what you think of that?
yeah, we can dive into Houston next. Like you mentioned, Vera was extended. That was a core player mentioned by the general manager Pat Onstad. And we get some of the options out. In those, we find out that the goalkeeper Michael Nelson from the Katy area played at SMU. He's
Mhm.
being retained. He kind of earned the number one spot there late, right?
Yeah.
If you want to, depending on what you call this season. Seven players got their options picked up. Um,
Mhm.
Seven players declined, although I think you could see some renegotiation there with maybe
Right.
Quintero. Obviously, I
Mhm.
think Ruti would be renegotiation. And I think guys like Darwin Seren, Sam Junka for Houston maybe benefiting from a short offseason, right? It's easier to just kind of
Yeah.
keep guys who you know what you're getting out of them than kind of have two more spots to fill in the offseason. Um, Dallas as well, kind of getting a little movement, right? The 6 options exercised, the 7 declined. But the big move, R. John Arnold reporting that Nico Esteves, right, the head coach, the new head coach of FC Dallas, assistant
Mhm.
under Berhalter with the U.S. men's national team. It looks like it might be a swap with Luchi
Mhm.
Gonzalez going the other way.
Hmm.
All this information, obviously, in the office of moves can be found on the strikertexas.com. Just your thoughts on FC Dallas, what they're doing there.
Yeah, I mean it's good. I mean it's good that they're it's good that they're finding a direction. I mean it'll be interesting to kind of see how it transpires. But I mean I really liked Lucci personally. Yeah, my other book has a bunch of Lucci in there. So there's some talking about Kellen Acosta and kind of his development and kind of what he looks for in a player, which was kind of one of my all-time favorite interviews that I've ever done. So yeah, I mean, I miss him, but I'm glad to see they have a new direction. Oh, I did want to ask you one thing back on Houston. So you said Michael
Yeah,
Nelson was the number one. So Marich did not get his option picked up,
yeah.
right?
He didn't get his option picked up. I wouldn't imagine he's coming back, although I guess anything could happen. You can always see him come back, but I
Sure.
wouldn't see it. I don't see the point either.
Hmm.
With
Yeah.
wasting an international spot on the goalkeeper when,
Right.
especially in the United States, that's
Hmm.
kind of the product of the home country. So,
Sure. Yeah.
I think maybe you see more depth. Kyle Morton, also the other
Hmm.
goalkeeper, didn't get his contract picked up, but we'll see what they do. It's coming fast. This whole offseason is coming fast, right?
Oh
We
yeah.
put up the home openers. I mean, we're February, late February is when the season starts. Houston
Yeah.
still doesn't have a head coach, so there's
Right.
the whole thing to get settled.
Hmm.
So Dallas at least looks like they're kind of getting moving there a little bit in that
Hmm.
direction.
But y'all know that you get to boo David Ochoa for the opener,
Ah, hey,
so
well,
that'll be fun.
well, let's see. Let's see how
Whereas,
he arrives. He could be arriving as MLS Cup champion, David Ochoa.
yeah, it could be. Anything can happen. Yeah, we'll find out in the next couple of weeks here.
Yeah. All right, Phil. Last couple thoughts on the MLS Cup playoffs, conference finals coming up this weekend.
Yeah, no, I mean it just continues to be really fun, and I'll be previewing those in the Striker Texas. Let you know my thoughts, and given that I'm 1 for 4 in round two, you might want to bet the opposite of what I present, but I will look at cases, and yeah, with Portland RSL, I mean one of the things I want to do too is just kind of um, look at how they did against Texas teams this year, just kind of to remind, just kind of frame of reference and all that, because yeah, I think it's really kind of interesting. I mean, especially in Austin's case, right? So I mean, you had you know Austin pretty much handling both those teams at home, but then not faring as well against them on the road, which is kind of the Austin story all this past year. So.
Right. And also international friendlies. El Salvador coming this
Hmm.
weekend in Houston. Mexico going to Austin next weekend.
Hmm.
I think the U.S. is out in California as well. So World Cup qualifying in next month. Plenty of stuff to talk about on strikertexas.com. We like to remind everybody that that's part of what brings you this podcast, your subscription to the Striker Texas. So anything you want to know about the Texas clubs, the strikertexas.com.
It makes such a good Christmas gift or a Hanukkah gift, which is upon us right now. So
All the seasons.
yeah.
All right.
Buy it
Thank
for
you, Phil.
whatever holiday you celebrate.
All right. Thank you, Phil. Everybody else, we'll see you next week here on the
All right.
Striker
Take care,
MLS
Victor.
podcast.
Enjoy the playoffs, everyone.